Indian polity. Government of India Act of 1935. Introduction. The Government of India Act of 1935 was a significant piece of legislation that marked a crucial phase in India's constitutional history. Enacted by the British Parliament, the Act aimed to introduce a new framework for governance in British India, while also laying the foundation for the eventual transfer of power to Indian hands. This three-page document provides a comprehensive overview of the Act's key provisions and their implications. Federal structure. The Act proposed the establishment of a federal structure for India, dividing powers between the centre and the provinces. It envisaged a federation of India comprising British India and the princely states, though the latter's participation remained voluntary. The Act, however, did not fully materialize due to the onset of World War II. Provincial autonomy. Under the Act, the provinces were granted a considerable degree of autonomy. They were to be administered by ministers responsible to the elected provincial legislatures. This provision aimed to increase Indian participation in governance and promote the growth of democratic institutions. Provincial executive. The Act introduced a hierarchy system at the provincial level. It divided the executive functions into two categories. Reserved subjects, administered by the governor with the help of his executive council, and transferred subjects, administered by ministers responsible to the provincial legislature. This provision aimed to strike a balance between British control and Indian representation. Federal legislature. The Act established a bicameral federal legislature consisting of an upper house council of state and a lower house federal assembly. The members of the upper house were to be mostly nominated, while the members of the lower house were to be elected. The federal legislature had limited powers and was subject to the authority of the British government. Separate electorates. The Act retained the policy of separate electorates, which provided reserved seats for different religious and minority communities. This provision aimed to safeguard the interests of marginalized groups but also perpetuated divisions along religious and communal lines. Federal court. The Act created a federal court with jurisdiction over constitutional matters and disputes between the centre and the provinces. The court comprised a chief justice and 6 judges. It aimed to provide a legal framework for resolving disputes and interpreting the Act's provisions. Financial provisions. The Act introduced a federal financial structure, dividing financial responsibilities between the centre and the provinces. The federal government had control over certain key financial matters, while the provinces had autonomy in managing their finances. However, the federal government retained significant control over revenue collection and allocation. Communal representation. The Act provided for reserved seats for various religious and minority communities, based on the principle of communal representation. This provision aimed to accommodate diverse interests and promote inclusivity, but it also reinforced communal divisions within society. Exclusion of Indian states. The Act did not extend its provisions to the Indian princely states, which enjoyed a varying degree of autonomy under the British Crown. The exclusion of the princely states limited the Act's reach and hindered the achievement of a unified governance structure. Criticisms and impact. The Government of India Act of 1935 faced criticisms from both Indian nationalists and British officials. Indian nationalists criticized the Act for not granting sufficient autonomy and not adequately addressing their demands for self-governance. British officials raised concerns about the potential weakening of British control over India. Despite its limitations and the outbreak of World War II, the Act played a crucial role in shaping India's constitutional evolution. It laid the groundwork for subsequent constitutional reforms, such as the Indian Independence Act of 1947, which eventually led to India's independence and the birth of the Republic of India. Thank you.